How's it going, everybody? And thank you for tuning into episode 4 of the Hanging Up the Boots podcast. This is part 1 of my interview with Kell. He was on my deployment. He's a good friend of mine, and he was part of the RRT, but our interview was over 3 hours long. Brandon's a really interesting guy and a great storyteller, so we talked for a long time. So I've elected to split the interview in 2 parts. Part 1 will be his path through the Marine Corps. It's pretty windy and interesting. And then part 2 is going to be his experience on the deployment and after the Marine Corps. So please give it up for Kell. All right, so Brandon, I'm assuming I will have already introduced you a little bit in the interview, the intro. So
Yes.
You were on the RRT. We went overseas together on the often talked about and often commiserated about 13th MEU, and you're currently living in Florida, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so just like all the other guys, all the others being the 2 of them, what got you into the Marine Corps? So everybody has a story of what they were doing that led them to the military in the first place, and then what brought them to the Marine Corps specifically. So how did you end up on the Yellow Footprints?
Well, where I was at in high school, I was in all honors and AP classes, but I went to like a public school. And I didn't feel like I was being challenged, to be honest. It didn't register to me like that when I was that age.
Yeah.
I was kind of just bored.
Yeah.
And because of that, like I would skip school and go try and just have sex with my girlfriends or do
Nice.
whatever, go fuck off with my friends.
Yeah. Standard high school age shit.
Yeah, I didn't have like a very like stable home life, so I kind of didn't want to be at home.
Mm-hmm.
My dad gave me 2 rules after the divorce. He was like, don't call me from jail and don't bring home a bad report card. So
Okay.
that to me meant don't get caught doing anything. So I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not don't do anything bad. It's if you do anything bad, I don't want to hear about it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was I really didn't have like a whole lot of good guidance. I spent a lot of my time like in the art room. I was really into art. I did drama for 1 semester or 1 year, and that was a lot of fun. I really liked weightlifting. I did that on my own, but I didn't have like any long-term goals. Mm-hmm. So like I kind of thought I was going to go to college. Like I was on that track, but I really had no idea what I would go to college for. So when when that time came and like everyone was talking about, well, they're going to go to college and they're going to be a lawyer. They're going to go to college and do this and that. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was looking up jobs for people who were into art. And there's the stigma of being a starving artist is there for a reason.
Yeah. I mean, you're from the Tampa area?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's no big art factory that you could walk into and get an art job in Tampa.
No, I mean, you can try and get an internship with Disney, but you better be shit hot. I quickly realized that I quickly realized that the competition in the art world is very cutthroat, and I wasn't that good, dude. I wasn't nearly that. I mean, I like to doodle, but
that's a whole different ball game. Yeah, I remember some of the artists at my high school. They kind of like self-segregated almost, like the artists, like they all hung out together, or they just didn't at all. They were just off on their own, doing their own thing. And you would just see people carrying these big ass canvases across the quad, and you're like, oh, I wonder what that would look like. And then you go and you're like, hey, what do you got there? And they show you, and you're like, holy moly, I am so useless as a creative.
Yeah,
Like,
see, and like I wasn't even one of those kids. So like
right. Yeah.
I procrastinated really hard in like everything because I got away with it for so long.
Yeah.
Like I would even do that with my art projects. I'd wait till like the night a critique was due, and I'd crank out 3 projects. And I didn't have the discipline. I didn't have like any appropriate guidance. And I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. And my dad had been in the Marine Corps, and I grew up listening to, well, he was in the reserves, but nonetheless, he blew it up. You know what I mean? And he told me all these stories about being in the Marine Corps and whatnot. And I actually knew a kid that was a grade ahead of me that had went into the Marine Corps, and he actually came back to my high school and was kind of doing his recruiting assistance while I was in school. And I saw him, and I went and I talked to him, and he's like, yeah, you should come talk to a recruiter. So I did. It's when I met my recruiter, Sergeant Price. Nice. And, I was decided that I was going to go to the Marine Corps after that. I was like, I college for, but I don't want to just sit around. I would like to have like an adventure. Let's do this.
Yeah. And so it was more, there wasn't like a kind of long convoluted road. It's, you just were kind of like, I don't really have a direction now. And then it just kind of fell in your lap, and having that kind of growing up with your dad being being a Marine, it just kind of made sense.
I mean, yeah. So there's one other factor there too. When I was 13, I was 13 when I first started working out, and I used the gym as like kind of like an escape from my home life. Like when shit got rough at home, like I would just go to the gym.
Yeah.
And there was a trainer there. His name was Jesse McClemma, and he kind of like took me under his wing, and he was an Army Ranger.
Okay. Yeah.
And he had deployed to Iraq, and he would tell me like war stories and stuff while we were working out. And he was just a super motivating guy. He's very high energy, A-type personality, and I think that is really what kind of influenced me into wanting to go into the military. I think a poor relationship that I have with, or what I had with my dad, is what motivated me to choose the Marine Corps.
So, it's interesting that it's almost out of spite, you went with his branch. That's kind of counterintuitive, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't consciously doing that at that age, but that's after a lot of reflection, I feel like that kind of makes the most sense.
Yeah, no, it does. That's interesting though. I whenever I tell the story of how I got into the Marine Corps, it's not at all as, almost noble. You were, I don't really know what I want to do, but I was so influenced by this awesome guy, and so I ran with it, and I was like, I basically fucking tripped and fell into a recruiting office. So so that's pretty cool. But and then it seems that that love of working out kind of drove you to make the decisions that you made in the Marine Corps. So you were in Radio Recon Platoon with Rusty, my first guest, and Micah, my second guest. So
yeah, not initially, but yeah, I ended up there.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, weren't you in Muse first?
Yeah. When I was in Muse, and before that, so I guess we can get there. I guess whenever you want to like travel through like my time in the Marine Corps or whatever.
I mean, just
but yeah, I hit a couple of other stops before I got to RP.
Okay, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. So, but really quick aside, do you remember Josue Herrera?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so he's like, we've been hanging out a little bit and talking, especially about the podcast, and he made the great point that so far in every one of my episodes, shitting in a bag has been heavily referenced. So if you have a shitting in a bag story, which I'm sure you do, let's make sure to kind of shoehorn that in there because he texted me about that and I lost it. I thought that was so funny. So you joined the Marine Corps not at the behest of, but after, being inspired by this Ranger veteran who, helped mold you into this chiseled slab of humanity that you are to this day. And
Thanks.
yeah. And to those of you who are just listening and not watching the YouTube video, go on YouTube and look at Brandon's arms. It's kind of gross. So you hit the yellow footprints, you get through boot camp, as we all do. You go to, and you were not a linguist you were not a linguist. You went to fucking Pensacola, right?
Correct. Yeah, I got a 95 on the D Lab.
That's
you
not. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's close. Well, take it from a linguist. You didn't miss out on much. I've heard Pensacola is pretty shit, but DLI was. Yeah. By the time we were there, I swear I was cursed, man. So for all of our friends that were that are listening, that were at battalion around the same time as us, they probably experienced the insanity of the super lockdown training command rules. And that happened 2 weeks before, rather, I arrived at DLI. Everybody that I was talking to, on recruiters assistance and everything was saying, yeah, it's great. It's awesome. Like DLI is super cool. And then I get there. I get picked up from the airport, Monterey Airport, by none other than Nicholas J. Weibel. And yeah, which was a crazy happenstance. And then I get to DLI and I'm like, why the fuck does this suck so much? Like everybody said this was awesome. 2 weeks after I leave, everything gets lifted. We get to Texas. It's like Supermax prison. 2 weeks after I leave, everything gets lifted. I'm like, fuck, man. Is it me? I don't know what was happening there, but it was just, oh God, it was such a drag. But
damn, dude. Yeah, I had a completely different experience at Corey Station. It was actually awesome.
Well, tell me about it.
But backing up just a little bit, and this just to touch on this really quick, I think it's interesting because I've not met anyone who's had this experience. I got received at Parris Island by myself.
What?
I left MEPS in a bus with just me and a driver in it. I drove all the way from Florida to Parris Island, and the guy told me to put my head down after corral and all that good jazz, and it was just me and him, me and the driver, and I got received by one drill instructor in the middle of the night with a lamp shining in my face on one set of yellow footprints, and no one else was there.
That is, yeah, I've never heard of that ever.
Yeah.
So were you?
Imagine that mind fuck.
I would rather not. And you had to have your head down the whole time?
Not the whole time, but when they bring you in the gate and they tell you put your head down or whatever, they don't want you seeing the, I guess, the normal part of. Oh, you were West Coast, right?
Yeah, and we had to have our heads down from the airport, but you were at Pendleton. The San Diego International Airport is over the fence from the depot.
Yeah.
So it was not long.
Pretty much as soon as we rolled up to the gate, the driver told me to put my head down, and then he drove me to wherever the receiving point is, and then one drill instructor tore me off the bus and screamed at me by just me and him outside in the middle of the night, and then shoved me through the big doors, and then I met up with a group of people after that.
That's so insane. Imagine being that drill instructor. Like, hey, you've got receiving. It's one guy.
Yeah, they probably drew straws for it. They were like, I don't want to do this.
Oh no, I feel like it'd be the opposite, because you get to point all an entire weeks of hate at one poor fucker.
Oh man.
So you have this hellacious, experience in receiving week, which is already not the most fun in the world anyway. And
Yeah.
then, so you get to Corey Station, and you said it's awesome.
Oh, it was great, dude. So when I got there, the detachment was still small.
Mm.
And so they mess with you a little bit when you get there, but it's all in good fun. Like they do the big reveal pretty quickly. They kind of like play games with you a little bit on the way there, just to kind of like freak you out a bit. But shortly after you get there, they're just like, "We're just kidding. This is actually what it is. This is really what's going to happen. You're going to go in this holding platoon for a little bit. You'll probably pick up in 2 to 3 weeks." And it was really good, dude. It was actually it set the bar really high for what I thought my experience was about to be in the Marine Corps. There was like 2 full platoons there, and they were still small. Everyone did everything together at Corey Station. It was really great. The command was great. We had these we had like a staff NCO that legitimately cared and had really good experience like on deployments, and was just a good leader and like genuinely compassionate. The fleet returnees that were the duty NCOs, or like the people that were like running the show, they were all responsible and intelligent and cared about you. At the chow hall, there was like a designated table that was like an unspoken designated table that like all the other branches just didn't sit there, because they knew all the Marines sit together. And it'd be a whole mob of us, and we'd all sit there and we'd all be cutting up and laughing and having a good time. And everybody was like held each other accountable. Like we had the bunker, right? Which was like this, it was like a rec room. So they had like it was like a joint room or whatever that they had cleared out. There was a pool table in there with like some couches and stuff. And it was pretty minimal. But there was a screen TV and like a PlayStation, and no one would ever hog anything. Like we would go in there and pile up. We'd watch movies. And, you'd sneak your Navy girlfriend in there or whatever, with whoever.
Yeah.
And if you did something that you weren't supposed to be doing, like drinking, no one snitched on anyone, and everyone kind of like, somebody was getting out of hand, that person was escorted by like a few people to their bedroom, to which their roommate would put them to bed and make sure that they were fine. And like nobody ratted on anybody, and like it was so cool. Like the weekend that I got there, I got special lib approved so that I could fly home, because Pensacola is in Florida, to the Panhandle, and Corey Station is in Pensacola, Florida, and I flew home to Tampa, got my truck, and drove it back up so that I could have a POV.
That's tight.
The week I got there, like 3 days later, special lib approved.
Wow.
It was really professional, and it was great. I had an amazing time there. It was one of the best times that I had in the Marine Corps.
I was just about to say, like, going from that, where it sounds like a well-oiled machine, to what I mean, I can't speak for the rest of your Marine Corps career, but the time that you and I experienced together on the 13th MEU detachment, going from that level of professionalism to just the unmitigated shit-flinging dumpster fire that was the 13th MEU det was probably a pretty calamitous fall from grace.
Yeah, I would say it was it was a long fall. I wouldn't say it was an immediate fall, but it definitely set the bar pretty high, and then what was to come is kind of what led to some decisions I made.
Yeah. And we'll get to a couple of those decisions toward the end of the deployment. But
bottom line, it was like everything that you would imagine the Marine Corps being, like great leadership, great friends, and like a family, really.
Right.
And like a motivated, badass family. That's what it was. It was really sick. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I heard it got really bad when like shortly after I had graduated from Pensacola. I heard they started doing like a tier system, and you had to wear a uniform all the time, and they pretty much kept everyone on a short leash, which sucks to suck, but everybody has a different experience.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, it stemmed from this guy going home. I don't know even know what school he was leaving, but he went home and on a 3-day weekend or something on Special Liberty killed himself, and people didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it until like Thursday of the week after. And so obviously it was a PR nightmare for the Marine Corps, and so they just completely like changed training command, and it was just never the same.
Yeah. I mean, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it was a drag.
That sucks.
But so you have this kick-ass time at Pensacola. You get to the fleet. You didn't go straight to RRP. So what was your path through 1st Radio Battalion?
So my path to 1st Radio Battalion is I drove from Florida all the way to California in my truck.
Ouch.
Great experience. It was an awesome experience, dude. One of the best times of my life. Yeah,
Dang.
I had a really good time. I made a bunch of stops. My mom was living in Louisiana at the time. I stayed with her for a couple days, ate a bunch of really good Cajun food.
Oh.
I stopped in Texas where I met this, I didn't meet, but I kind of like reunited with a Navy girl that I'd met at Corey Station. Stayed the night with her, had a good time.
Nice.
Then we went to, and then I went to Arizona was my next stop, where I stayed in a hotel in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And like a good Marine, because I knew I was checking in the next day, I put on my fucking Alphas, dude, like a total boot. I drove from Phoenix, Arizona to Camp Pendleton, California in my fucking Alphas.
Oh my God. And
dude,
so for those of you that were not in the Marine Corps specifically or any branch, the Service Alpha is the uniform that you have to check into a new unit in, is like wearing the least comfortable rental tux you could buy.
Yeah, it's very stiff.
It's miserable. And oh my God, dude, you made that. How long was that leg of the trip?
I can't remember, dude. It was very long though.
You must have been miserable. The cool thing
was that when I was waiting for my truck to get brought out of valet,
mm-hmm.
and I was in the pickle suit. The Harlem Globetrotters had pulled up, and they were checking into the hotel that I was checking out of. And as they were like exiting out, yeah, dude, I'm standing there looking like I'm 5'8" for anybody who wants to know. So I'm standing there looking like this short pickle, and monsters are coming out, and one of them comes up to me. This dude had to have been 7 feet tall. Mm-hmm. He came over to me and shook my hand, and he was like, "Thanks for your service." And I was like, "This is so cool."
Yeah, especially because you've been in the Marine Corps for all of what, like 6 months? Like,
I'm still shitting out like third phase chow. Like,
yeah. Oh my God, you still smell like the depot. Yeah.
Yeah, but
and he's like, "Thank you for your service." That's hilarious. Oh, dude, I love it.
Cool, dude. I thought it was cool.
That is cool. That's super cool.
But then I check in. The address that I was given was to the IPAC that was over by the Chow Hall. I don't know if you remember that. I don't know the actual name of it.
By the main IPAC at God damn,
the one in 13 area.
Yeah, behind the skiff. Yeah.
No. The other one. I don't know. Is that IPAC? I don't know. Someplace. So it was by the Chow Hall. It was right by the Chow Hall in 13 area, like walking distance from the barracks. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I checked in the middle of the night,
mm-hmm.
and they had to call the barracks duty to come pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
And the duty van pulls up, and I'm not going to drop his name. I'm going to try my best not to drop any names during this interview, but I got if anyone remembers him, he's notorious for doing Edward 40 hands. Okay, which is where you take a 40 ounce of beer in each hand, and it gets taped there, and you're not allowed to go to the bathroom until they're both empty.
Yeah.
So the guy that was notorious for that was the person who picked me up.
Oof.
And if you haven't picked up on it, like I was super motivated.
Big
in
time.
the Marine Corps. Like I got meritoriously promoted out of boot camp. Loved my A school. Was real excited to be a Marine.
Yeah.
And I get picked up by this dude in the duty van who's wearing camis that looks like they haven't been washed in over a week. He smelled like he smoked 2 packs of cigarettes that day, which knowing him, he probably did.
Yeah.
no shave, big hat pulled right over his head. He gunny rolls, donut sleeves, the whole nine.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's up, bro?" And he's a corporal. And on the Lance Corps, I'm like, "What's up, corporal?"
Yeah, you're like shitting bricks, but you're like, what the fuck
I didn't
is
know
this?
what I was. I was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh no, dude, we don't do that here." And
Yeah.
I was like,
which is true.
I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And
the rad bin experience.
yeah, he's like, "Are you excited?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm really excited to get to work and all this stuff." And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead and get rid of all that, man. This place sucks." That's what he said.
Oh no.
Yeah, he goes, "I'm gonna be straight with you, dude. This place is the worst." He's like, "Everyone hates it here." He said, "This is Rad Bin, where everything's a theory and rank doesn't matter." And
well, he's not wrong.
To an extent, yeah, in a lot of ways, that rang true.
Yeah.
That didn't deter me right away, but
That's good.
Anyway, I check into the barracks. I wasn't given any instruction on really where to go. I didn't know where the company was. I checked into the barracks NCO,
Mm-hmm.
and they put me in like one of the empty, like the restriction rooms with like a wool blanket and a pillow.
Yeah.
So the next morning, I didn't know when to get up. I just got up like at 6 to 7, I can't remember. And then I go back down there. I said, "Hey, where do I go to check in?"
Yeah.
And so I go down, and I was supposed to check into Bravo Company.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had gotten there, Bravo Company had just sent out a pump to Afghanistan. It was going to be their last one.
I think that was Scott's deployment.
Probably.
He was the last company out of Camp Bastion, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Because he was getting back from Afghanistan when I was getting to Battalion.
Maybe. That would make sense.
Yeah. Weird.
So yeah, I get there and I report in to the only person who is available in the company office, the master sergeant, the ops chief at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And his words to me were, "I don't have time to train you. I'm about to go on a deployment.
Huh.
So you're probably going to get fapped out."
Tight. Love to hear it. First day on the job.
Right after I'd met old 40 hands.
Yeah, you're like, what did I get myself into here? What is happening? Especially after that experience at Pensacola.
Yeah. But that didn't deter me yet, because I had heard of RRP. I heard that they got to do some high-speed stuff, but I didn't really know a lot about them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I brought that up. I said, "Hey, I heard RRP people. Can I check that out?" And he was like, "You want to do RP?" I was like, "Yes, Master Sergeant."
Yeah.
So they send me over there, where I promptly begin to get my shit pushed in.
Yeah, that seems to be the general consensus about RRP.
Well, that was old. That was old RP. It was not under good management, and a lot of the older guys will tell you that too. That the gunny that was in charge at the time, he didn't have a really good grip on things. He kind of just let these ruthless corporals and lance corporals kind of take care of everything. Pretty much, if you had passed BRC, like, you ran whatever was going on that day with everyone else that had come in. And it was rough, dude. It was like, we would get up at 4 a.m. Mm-hmm. We'd go on these long ruck runs, and then like whenever they felt like, we would be in rucks and they would be in like silkies.
Yeah. PT gear.
Like, keep up with us. And every so often, we'd stop and they'd mess us up, and that was all fine and well, and that, whatever. But it did get to the point where, like, I didn't know why I was doing anything. I didn't know what RP was about. I didn't know what the mission was.
You were just getting hazed every day.
What'd you say?
You were just getting hazed every day with no end in sight.
Essentially, yeah. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here, and that gets really old really quick, especially in the water. Oh God, I bet. And yeah, and once again, I'm not going to drop any names, but we'd break into the pools, dude, like early in the morning without a corpsman.
Oh,
and we'd get hazed in the water.
yikes!
Um,
And they're like, it's cool.
a long time ago. All these people are long gone and moving on to bigger and better things and all that. I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm just trying to, shed some light on like what, why I did what I did or whatever. But
tell the story, man. That's the point. Don't worry.
It got to the point where I was like, dude, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I here? Like, so and by the way, I hadn't even checked in. Let me back up to that, dude. I haven't done my check-in, like check sheet, all that stuff. I don't exist yet.
So you're just showing up to these workouts with RRP because they're just like, cool, just start showing up at this time.
Yeah.
Oh.
And when I brought it up, I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. I told, now I had some really good, there was one dude who was really good to me when I was in there. Mm-hmm. And he was a corporal at the time. He actually was like trying to show me knots and was like starting to like kind of show me what RP was all about. But that influence just, I guess, just didn't happen quick enough for me. I had already made up my mind that I didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
So I brought it up to the gunny. I said, hey, gunny, I know this is a volunteer platoon. I don't think it's for me. I don't, everybody here is great, but I think I'd like to go back to Bravo Company, please.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you can't do that. The paperwork's already done. You're here. And I was like, well,
actually, it's not.
Well, I didn't know that yet.
Oh, okay.
So I started to believe it. And I knew that like I was in a bad place. Like I had a gut feeling. I was like, this is not good for me. This is going to be bad for me. I know I should not be here.
Right.
I'm going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up wanting to talk to the lieutenant. Okay. Mm. And the lieutenant was great at that time. He actually was really good. We actually ran into him on our deployment. He had gotten out and he was a contractor.
Oh, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really nice seeing him. But he actually, the lieutenant was the one that was like, you know what, that's fine. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be. It's totally okay. He's a very like down to earth dude. He sent me to the company office where I was chewed out by the first sergeant for being a quitter.
Cool.
Yep. And I got fapped out and they said, hey, you're going to go be a skiff guard for 4 months. Because that's like the typical length of getting fapped out. Like you're going to go work at the skiff for 4 months. And I was there for 7 months.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But a good thing that came out of that was I met a new master sergeant who was actually great. He was one of the best leaders I have ever had to this day. He was really good. Was
that Top Brown?
No, it was Top Parsons.
Oh, I didn't get a chance to meet him, I don't think, but I've heard great things.
Yeah, he was the SSO, so he spent a lot of time just like in his office, and he really only concerned himself with the people in his shop.
Right.
But he was a great leader, and he was like, gave you all the resources you need, encouraged you to do MCIs. If he had an open door policy, like a legitimate one, and was actually really good. That time there being a skiff guard, it taught me a lot of stuff, taught me patience, and it taught me billet over rank.
Yeah.
Because I ran into some situations where some people wanted to kind of use their rank to bully themselves through the door without doing the proper procedures.
Right.
Which is,
you can't do.
Like that's a security violation. You can't do that.
Right. So real quick aside, for those of you that did not work in the intelligence community, SCIFs are secure compartmentalized information facilities, and that's where people go to classify or to handle and work with classified or sensitive information. And as you can imagine, the security procedures there are intense. And so being a SCIF guard basically means verifying the security level or the clearance level of anybody going in to the SCIF and ensuring that they're qualified to be there. So, rank does not matter. So that was Brandon's job.
And when you're, if you're a lance corporal and there's a gunny or a major or something that has business behind that door, sometimes they get a little upset if you make them jump through the hoops that they're supposed to jump through, and they don't want to do it. So, but yeah, there actually ended up being an incident while I was there. There, like, an alarm had been tripped, and then a QRF had actually come from the MPs, and like literally like a stack of dudes are banging on the door, and they're like, "Let us in right now." So they come in through the door, and they're like, "We got to get in this building right now." And I was like, "You can't." And they're like, "No, there's it was some special alarm." They said it either meant like somebody was in danger or being hurt or something like that. And they were like weapons drawn, like they needed to get in that door. And I had to call, it was on the weekend. I had to call Top Parsons and let him know what was going on. And from there, he told me to execute these procedures that he had told me to do. Pretty much have to like announce like everything's being scrubbed, all this stuff. And then, and I had to escort this team through the entire skiff or whatever with red lights on, and everybody's like doing all their whatever. I don't know what happened. I think somebody accidentally had flipped a switch or something, but
Jesus.
Obviously it turned out to be nothing.
Yeah.
And
that was probably so stressful though.
Yeah, I mean, but you just do what you're supposed to do. Like, you follow the standard operating procedures, and it went smoothly. Yeah. They did what they were trained to do. I did what I was instructed to do, and it was fine.
Yeah.
And I actually this totally took me by surprise, but I actually ended up getting I got a CERTCOM for that.
What? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was all right. I didn't think I did anything that special, but apparently I don't know.
Well, I mean, you did handle the scrubbing of an entire skiff, so that is pretty cool. But
maybe, I don't know. I didn't do it. I just escorted them, but whatever.
Well, that's true. It just goes to show, there's always that maxim of, people hope they'll rise to an occasion, but the truth is you always just kind of you fall down to your training or your instructions. It's not.
Well, when they were giving me the CERTCOM, the company commander at the time, they give you like a little pep talk when you're like this close to him or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, what did he say? He told me good job. And he said, this is actually a pretty big deal considering that you got sent away and that you were able to bounce back from it. And he had commended me for that and said that, that reflects a lot on your character. And that meant a lot for me. And I really needed that at the time. I was like 7 months into sitting in a chair watching people behind a screen. Like, I was after having all that crap happen. Yeah. And actually, while I was in the skiff, some of my friends that I'd been to Corey Station with got to go on a deployment. What was it? Not an RFF. It was a R4 deployment. It was like an administrative deployment. And they did some work in Afghanistan, and then they had gone and come back by the time I even got off skiff duty. So I was kind of depressed, dude. I was I was kind of pretty down on my luck. Like, I started growing a mustache, and I was like, I started kind of letting the demotivation seep in.
Yeah.
That time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, and I'm sure everybody here that has been in the Marine Corps or the military for that matter knows that, or has felt at least once, that the most frustrating thing about the military is knowing exactly how well it can operate and being forced to endure it not going that way every day. You're like, this is how, given how I know how everything is supposed to be working, or at least, the processes that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. You have a good understanding of all of that stuff. Why is this so fucking hard? It's like when you're stuck in traffic and you're like, dude, driving is not that difficult, especially in Southern California. Driving is not fucking hard. but
Yeah.
people make it look so goddamn hard. And I don't get it. And it's like that when you feel like you're doing everything right. You're following the instructions, you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's. You obviously were a fucking motivator, and you were hard charging toward whatever it is that you wanted to do, and it's just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. That's a drag, man.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it didn't stop.
I hear you.
It didn't stop. So I got back to the FIOC, and I go to Muse Platoon.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got a Muse Platoon, I actually had once again, it was actually a pretty good time.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really good command. I had, I had a great staff NCO. I'm going to just call him out, Brocious. He was so good. I had a really offhands LT. He pretty much was just like, Staff Sergeant, you got it. And then I was in a platoon with all my friends that I had gone to Corey State. We had a really good time. And nice. I was like, okay, maybe this is going to start looking up. Maybe I can actually start working towards getting on a deployment. Yada, yada. They send me to crewman's course,
mm-hmm.
and which was a great experience. I thought it was really cool. Driving LEDs.
I'm bummed I never got to go to crewman's course.
Oh, dude, it was fun, dude. Oh, shooting the gun, like the ranges are really fun, like the chain guns.
Bet, dude. Then, fuck yeah.
Like you get to drive on the Reaper, like that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tight.
And then I actually got to do their leaders course or whatever, where like their officers or whatever trained to go there. I was a driver for them. That was really got to do like some how to like react to IEDs, and we did like actually some more combative stuff versus like just driving. So that was actually a great experience.
Yeah, that's tight.
But while I was there, Radbin came down and they said, "Hey, we're going to stand up an RFF." And I immediately called my staff NCO. I was like, "Please put me on this deployment."
Yeah, like I need this, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I've already seen like my friends go on a deployment and come back. I was like, "Please put me on this deployment." And he was like, "We can't. Like, you're already in crewman's course. Like, we can't pull you out." So I got to see my friends go on a second deployment while I'm in training.
God, yeah.
So I was like, "Okay, I'm in crewman's course. We're gonna get through crewman's course." I get through crewman's course. I come back. We do like a small field exercise. There's not really a whole lot of people in Muse Platoon anymore. A lot of them got pulled for that deployment. And then the chain of command changes in Muse Platoon for the worst.
Oh.
It was not good. It was not good.
Yeah.
It had a staff NCO that didn't back us up, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good anymore. I wasn't learning anything. Nobody was going to teach us. I didn't know what to do or whatever. At this point, I still hadn't learned anything SIGINT related.
Yeah.
But there was a battalion FEX coming up. The battalion does these every once in a while. I don't know if they try to do them once a year. I think I've only been on 2 of them, maybe 3. I think 2.
I think I managed to skate out of all of them. So
good for you. Because I got voluntold to be a rabbit, considering I wasn't on it. There was no standing team in Muse Platoon anymore because they had stood up for an RFF, and I didn't know SIGINT, so they weren't going to put me in like the skiff or anything like that. So I got voluntold to be a rabbit.
Ugh.
So I was working the night shift, being a rabbit in the middle of 29 Palms, and I was with another Lance Corporal and this sergeant, and both of them, they could see off in the distance. They could see main side. They could see the lights from main side, and they were like, "I wonder how far away that is." They said, "It can't be more than 3 miles." They're like, "Let's go get a pizza." Mind you, we're in a Humvee with like radios and shit and like rifles, and we're in the mid. Like, it's not just like off a road. We're in the middle of an open like desert, and it's pitch black outside, dude.
Right.
It's the desert.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's probably not a good idea. But once again, like I'm fucking Lance Corporal. That dude was a sergeant. And he was like, "No, it's fine. No, like they'll be there and back in 2 hours. It's no big deal."
Okay.
And I was like, And I was like, okay. So they left into the night and I stayed.
I like where this is going.
I think less than an hour passed by and this really good guy came by. He had been through a shit ton. He had been like a gunnery sergeant and had been wrongly court-martialed down to a lance corporal. And was a linguist. Yeah, and he spent that enlistment fighting his court-martial because he knew it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had reached the rank of sergeant before like it was like the verdict was complete, and he wasn't going to gain any more ground with it. But anyway, that's a side note. He came to check on me.
Okay.
And he was like, "Hey, where are the other guys?" So now I'm put between a rock and a hard place. What do I do? Do I snitch these guys out? Or do I try to cover for them? You're fucked either way.
Yes, you are.
I was like, I'm gonna try and buy them some time. I said they walked out to go to take a shit. One guy had to go to the bathroom. They walked off for a little bit. And he was like, oh, okay, well, and being the great dude that he is, right? He was like, well, I'm going to give you a small class on radios. He's like, I know you haven't learned a whole lot yet, so I'm going to try and teach you something.
Okay.
First time anyone's ever done that. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're going over the radios, we're going over this stuff, and my heart's beating out of my chest because I'm like, dude.
These guys are about to roll back in with a pizza. And you're getting a hip pocket class on the radio.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, some time goes by, and he's like, where did you say they went? And I was like, dude, I'm busted. I was like, hey, I have to be honest with you. They said that they were going to walk to Mainside. And he was like, no, they fucking didn't say that. And I said, yeah, they said they were going to walk to Mainside. He said they'd be back in 2 hours. And he was like, okay, you stay right here. Don't move. I'm going to go try and find them. So he goes back and gets on the road and he tries to search for these guys in the middle of the night in the desert.
Yeah.
29.
Yeah.
There's no light, dude. There's no light. There's no street lights. There's nothing.
Oh, I know. Yeah, yeah.
And then he comes back after like 30 minutes of looking. And he is like, have you tried calling them? And I did. And he's like, I have to tell someone about this. There's unexploded ordnance all over the place here. He's like, people die from exposure from getting lost out here all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, I have to report this. He's like, I really don't want to because this is going to get ugly, but I have to do this. So he calls it in. And to fast forward a little bit, the command sends out like everyone. Like, and this is the battalion field exercise. The whole battalion is here.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Every head shed, like everybody. Commander,
yeah.
Every company first sergeant is looking for these guys.
Oh,
they had to report it into Long Rifle, and Long Rifle said, you have 1 hour to find these Marines, or we have to shut down the entire base and send out a QRF and a search party.
And Long Rifle is the 29 Palms range control. Oh,
yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
And for 45 minutes, people blew up their phones and searched and searched and searched until finally they picked him up. To which they promptly stopped all training. Like they got it right in time before Long Rifle.
Oh my God,
just
dude.
in time, literally like 15 minutes before. And they sorry.
Hello, dog. Cat?
Yeah.
Cat or dog?
They stopped all of our training.
Yeah.
And they brought me, the other Lance Corporal, and the sergeant into the head shed tent. And they handed us a piece of paper and a pen, and they said, write your statement on what just happened.
Oh, no.
And then they marched us into this tent, to which we were crucified by every single major person from every company. Every first sergeant, every company commander, the battalion sergeant major, and the battalion commander all took turns lifing us out.
Oh my God, dude.
It was the most embarrassing thing I'd ever endured. It was terrible. I got a 6105.
All things
The other dude
considered, you got off completely scot-free.
That's and I thank my stars that I got the 6105 because the other dude got an NJP and the sergeant got an NJP, demoted to the rank of corporal, and was put on restriction for like 60 days. Dude couldn't spend Christmas with his newborn baby daughter.
Oh, well, I mean, that sucks, but you're kind of a bonehead.
Dude, yeah, and it was rough. So the guy that actually reported it, he found out later that I had gotten a 6105 and wanted to fight that. He said, "You should not have gotten any negative paperwork." He's like, "That was not my intention."
Dude, this guy's a saint. Like, what's his name?
I don't want to give out his name because he has a job right now that it's where he works in like the soft community, so I don't really want to like dime him out or anything.
Okay.
But he's a really awesome guy. He got to do what anybody who actually gives a shit about SIGINT ever wanted to do. Like he was like rolling through Iraq, wrapping bad dudes up, like doing all kinds of cool shit.
That's badass.
He had a huge stack.
I'm sure.
Yeah, he did a lot of cool stuff.
Good for that guy for being a cool like the good dude factor runs strong in that guy.
Yeah, no, he's one of the dopest dudes I ever met. So all of this has happened. I'm really, really upset about it.
Yeah.
And I'm on the shit list now. Okay. So I have to do all this bullshit or whatever. And I was like, dude, this is it, man. I don't want to be here. At the time, Marine Security Guard had like a need for more people.
Right.
And one of the requirements for that is you need a security clearance. So I was like, well, I'll do that. Like, I'll go.
Get me out of this hellhole and go into MSG.
Yeah, you can apply as a Lance Corporal, and upon graduation, you'll get pinned Corporal. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll do that. I'll go put in an MSG package. I'll get out of here. I'll just go do that. So I put in a package for that. Fast forward, it gets rejected because I had applied within, I think it's 6 to 12 months of receiving negative paperwork.
Oh my God.
Yeah, dude. So I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I hate it here. Nothing is happening. Nothing is working. And I've been here so long at this point, I'm probably never going to deploy. Like, that was a conversation I had to have with my staff NCO. I was like, am I going to deploy? And he was like,
it's not looking
unless
good.
RFF stands up, probably not.
Yeah.
And I was super bummed out about it.
Yeah.
Really bummed out about it.
Yeah, nobody joins. Well, I can't say nobody, but at least someone like you who enjoyed the beginning of your Marine Corps career, you went into it with the intention of deploying, obviously.
Yeah.
Man, that's a bummer, dude.
But obviously, whatever, I kept, I tried to stay positive. I still tried to have a good time with my friends. I still tried my best, on the range. I'd always shot expert. I actually got invited to go be a guest coach a couple times, so I spent some time doing that.
That's cool.
And then my staff NCO put me in this computer course, which was a lot of fun, and it had been taught by the new staff NCO of RRP.
Okay.
RRP had just gotten under new management.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a buzz going around the battalion that it was a completely different place. And I took this course, and it was by far some of the best instruction that I had received since I'd been there. And I'd been there for I think over 2 years at this point, maybe more. I can't remember. My entire time in the Marine Corps was 6 years. And so I was like, okay. And then I heard him say something about RP. He was doing a little promotion. He's like, hey, if you're interested in doing this kind of stuff, or if you're interested in doing X, Y, and Z, if you want to come out to RP, we'd love to see you, come try out or whatever. They had built the training cell where you would go and spend some time there. And there was a curriculum that you had to pass before you got accepted into the platoon.
Yeah. The RIP, right?
No, not the RIP. The RIP is what you do when you're already in.
Oh.
Yeah, it was called the cadre at RRP had all come from MARSOC.
Right.
All the staff NCO had like the staff NCOs were from MARSOC. The training chief was a recon Marine, and then the OIC was one of the best officers I've ever met in my life. He was a Mustang, and he had done like multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. He had a car with a V.
Damn.
Yeah, no, the
car being the combat action ribbon with a combat V for Valor.
Yeah, no, he was
for non-Marine Corps people.
Yeah, when he was enlisted, he did some squad leader. That's all he would say. I was like, "How'd you get that?" And he would be like, "I'm just doing squad leader things in Iraq." I was like, "Okay, leave it open ended like that. That's fine,
asshole."
Yeah, but anyway, I went and I talked to my staff NCO and Muse Platoon. I said, "Hey, look, if I'm not going to deploy, if you think I'm not going to deploy, I really want to train. I don't want to just sit here and do nothing." And that's what I felt like I was doing. I felt like we got to the shop, we'd sit around, wait for word, go to the barracks, play video games, and kind of just do whatever until someone gave us the green light to go home.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I don't like sitting still. Like today, I still don't like sitting still. So I went and I talked to him, and he said, "Yeah, I hate to see you go, but if that's what you want to do, I'll support you. I'll let you go do it." So I went to the pool that day, and it was a completely different experience. It was structured. It was still hard.
Yeah, definitely.
It was still shitty. That was back when like chain banging was still a thing, where we'd like tread water with like these chains and shit around our neck, or like do bottom samples with chains in our hands and like come back up and like, so it was still difficult. It was still stressful, but like afterwards, like they would like counsel you, and they would like tell you, "Hey, this is really going to help you improve treading water, which is going to prepare you in the event that you go to the BRC, or if we're ever doing like open water training and like you need to do whatever the fuck, I can't even remember. I never had water or anything like that, or like if the current gets tough, like this is going to develop your confidence in the water."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, that makes sense. Of course. Why wouldn't I want exposure to stress like in the water?"
Absolutely.
So I stayed, and my friend Caleb had actually been put in charge of the training cell, so that was nice too. I was like, "Okay, I know someone here, and this is like a nice little community." And we had a good time, dude. We worked out like 3 times a day, and
fuck yeah, meathead life.
It was cool, dude. We went to the O course twice a week and just ran it. We went to the pool twice a week, which was miserable because we were there for like 4+ hours every time. And if the training chief was running PT, it was going to be super rough. And then we did ruck runs and all this stuff. And like, it was essentially, I was getting paid to work group of people. That goes by. I run the assessment test, and then after that, you have to do an 8-mile ruck run on the Alpha Shelf, which is a very steep incline mountainous terrain. And you have to do it in under, I think it's like 2 hours or an hour and 50 minutes or something like that. I can't remember.
Jesus.
And I passed, and then immediately after that, you have to go and do like a board, right, where they like grill you on why you should be an RP. And I passed all that, and I got in, and that's how I got RP.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a fucking saga.
It's a long road, dude. And then that was just the beginning of RP, dude. You know, the deployment and the workup and all that.
Yeah, I was about to say, and I when we stood up for the deployment, you guys were doing some kind of training, if I recall correctly. You guys were doing something, and you weren't at the first like family meeting where we all went to the bay and we're like, okay, let's all go around and say one cool thing about ourselves. And but there's also an entire other team that's not here. I'm pretty sure I knew that you wanted to stay in when I met you.
Yeah.
Or at least you had ideations about it. And then when, obviously we went through the deployment and, you were on the other ship. So your set of bullshit was a little independent from my set of bullshit. They overlapped a little bit, but you know, there's no way to frame that deployment in a objectively positive manner. You know, it was pretty fucking miserable all around. And you got hosed even further than the rest of us because you were forced to extend in order to go. You were forced to extend your contract in order to go on the deployment.
Well, I wanted to extend. So I had no problem with extending to go on the deployment. The issue was that I was being hemmed up, being told that I had to re-enlist if I wanted to go.
That's it. Right.
And that didn't make any sense to me because I didn't need that long of an extension.
Right.
But to dial it back a little bit, the workup was rough. I was appointed a team leader,
right?
Which I had no expectation of being put on a deployment. I didn't think I was going to be put on a team. The way that it had been kind of talked to me, because my friend Caleb that went and ran ITC or the training cell, whatever it is. And, I don't like calling it ITC because that's like what MARSOC does, and that's not. It's like a training platoon or whatever. He got voluntold to go to RRP, and he pretty much got stood up to be a training cadre because he was an MAI. He had been on a deployment, and he was originally as well. I think he kind of ran into a similar situation that I ran into, that he felt he was being mistreated, so he decided to leave.
Okay.
Because they were redoing everything, they kind of had to talk with him and, hey, look, it's not going to be like that. Like, we want some structure. We actually want to like help people here. So he went over there, and he told me, because I was kind of like venting to him about like, dude, I don't know what to do, man. I've had like kind of had like a rough experience here. I don't know if I'm going to deploy. And he's like, you should come to RP. He was like, they'll probably just make you cadre. He's like, you don't have that much time on your contract left. Like, you probably won't even be able to deploy. It wouldn't make sense for them to put you on a team. You'll probably just do what I do. He's like, they'll send you to jet ski course, and you'll just be like a safety jet ski person. And I was like, that sounds cool.
That sounds tight.
Yeah,
sign me the fuck up.
Yeah, let's play on jet skis. Like,
yeah. Oh no, I can't deploy, but I get to fuck around on jet skis all day. Dang it.
Yeah, I'm trying to make some lemonade, man. You know. But anyway, I get there, and as soon as I pass, they're like, yeah, you're going to be on this team. You're a team leader. I was like, what? I was like, I'm no SIGINT. Like,
yeah, I haven't done this before.
I don't know anything, dude. Yeah. Like, I hadn't really learned anything yet. Uh-huh. And I had no deployment experience. I mean, I was like,
what?
I work well on a team, and like, I'm good at following orders. To be honest, dude, like I was not ready to be a team leader. Are you kidding me? I wasn't ready for that, but they gave me that responsibility, and I did my best. I listened to what my leadership told me to do, and throughout the RIP, which is what we did during the like our little workup before we're deployable or whatever.
Right.
There's like 3 phases. There's a amphib phase, a land nav phase, and then an urban phase. Mm-hmm. And you do a bunch of stuff in all of that. Okay, a lot of miserable stuff, but it's a good learning experience. And that's kind of what shaped me into being able to be a team leader. I felt confident team leader, and me and the team kind of came together because we weren't tight in the beginning. No one really liked me, and I don't think everybody had like an issue with somebody in the team, and it took a lot of burpees for us to become friends. Not issued by me. I tried that like one time, and I realized respond well to that. Like they just hated me more. So
yeah, it's different when you're hitting the deck with them, and it's somebody else where you can all together be like, man, fuck that guy for making us do this.
Well, dude, what brought us together a lot better was when we had problems. I kind of started like I was like, yo, we need to like just sit down and like talk. And we would go to the team bay and we would like blouses off, like no rank, whatever, just like, yo, like I'm Brandon, you're Micah, you're Nick. Like, who's got a problem with who
and why?
Whatever. Yeah. And then and why? And we would sit in there and we'd hash it out. And sometimes people would cuss each other out, and sometimes people would scream, or some people sometimes there would never be like a resolution, but at least they would understand why somebody felt that way.
Yeah.
And we continued to do that throughout the workup and throughout the, and that kind of stuff, like actually talking stuff out, actually communicating, is kind of what got rid of the conflict between us, and like resolved all the issues. And I would argue that we were one of the tightest teams on the entire deployment out of every shop. Like,
yeah, I would say so.
Even with all the bullshit that happened on the deployment, like,
yeah,
we were all able to stay pretty tight.
Yeah. And that's key, that deployment was super fucking miserable, and having that, that tight knit team was, it couldn't have hurt. I found that to be the case, with even on my team. I had a lot of, there was a couple guys that I was really close to and I could confide anything in if I wanted to, or if I felt I needed to. And then there was a couple that, like, I knew they would have my back if like something went really far down, but I wouldn't like seek out their company, or, not that you have to when you're stacked on top of each other in the belly of a ship, but like, in the real world, like I wouldn't, seek them out, but I wouldn't be opposed to their presence necessarily. And then there was one where I was like, I could totally be okay with never talking to this guy ever again. And, and that's shown since I've been out, like I still regularly talk to, semi-regularly talk to the guys that I felt the closest to. But there have been people that, there's people on the deployment that I haven't spoken to or really had any kind of contact with since we got back. We went our separate ways, and then they stayed separate.
I miss them, dude. I won't lie. I miss a lot. I miss Cam. I miss John.
Yeah.
I miss a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, it happens.
Yeah, it is the nature of the beast. But it's I think it would have been nice to have had such a cohesive team, because like my team, I had really close, friends on the deployment. Like when I went to the Boxer, like hanging out with you and Rusty and Scott and, those, like that group was awesome. And then I came back and, I had my little group of my friends, then, a couple, within my team. And then there was a couple LAR guys I hung out with all the time. And there was a couple, LE Battalion guys that I hung out with all the time because we were all in the same berthing. But, it wasn't like my team and everyone else. It was little, like, I had like a Franken group of friends, I
think that's good though, because that was another point I was going to make, is that I feel like that kind of level of communication spread. I'm not going to say it started with the RRT, but it did start to happen more on the detachment.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, definitely.
Like if you, despite all the bullshit that we went through, we all went through that bullshit together. Like everybody was really tight because we had like a common point of discomfort.
Yeah, that's true.
And we, like, by leaning on other people and by like trying to get people around you, I feel like we kind of we created something good out of something that was completely miserable.
Yeah,
which is why I really care. Like I genuinely care about everybody that was on the detachment, which was why it was so important to me that I got my extension approved.
Right.
Because I had been through so much up to that point. Like getting to the point where we're about to deploy, like going through is like a mini deployment in itself. It took a year to work up for this.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of headache within that workup. Like a big moment, despite having to like constantly butt heads with the chain of command, our immediate chain of command was what made it so miserable. And it sucks because because of the nature of our, it's hard to articulate the issues that we're having outside of our immediate chain of command, because they were responsible for kind of conveying our capabilities and limitations, right, and pitching what we're able to do, and they were not able to do that very well. But anyway, a huge point that happened was when we were at we were supposed to do like a long range exercise. So we started in one point that was in California.
Yes. Yeah. It was long range raid, right? No, was it long range raid course? I don't remember.
I don't know. Anyway, the point is we had a mission that came down that got really fucked up. Okay. There was already some heat on my team because we had a member that was just embarrassing us through the entire workup. And just he was getting on the chopping block because he was quickly falling out of the height and weight standards, and he was not able to meet the requirements that were demanded of him on the team. Right. Now, I had exhausted everything that I could to try and help him. I had counseled him on the issues that were happening. I tried to talk to him about diet and nutrition, and our master sergeant even instructed me to go to his home and look in his house and try and find out whether or not, like, what kind of food. So I did that. Yikes. I went to the dude's house, like, saw that he was drinking too much, and like tried to, I was like, dude, like, you have to eat better. Like, and barring actually feeding him his meals, I did everything that I could. Yeah. I remember when all this was happening. But because he had just recently been put on BCP, he was not able to go on this mission that had dropped. And on top of that, we had, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Micah was in a language course, and I think Harkham was in another course. No, Harkham was. But anyway, we were in no-go criteria for being able to go. Mm-hmm. Comms had not even been like the people that were in charge of our comms hadn't even situated. So we only had like two means of communications, and one of them was like the SATCOM, which is supposed to be your last resort. Yeah. And the timeline got shifted like multiple hours to the left, and I tried telling our chain of command multiple times. I said, in our standard operating procedures, which you have reviewed, we are in no-go criteria. We are not able to carry this load, and we're not able to safely conduct this mission. We don't have the appropriate number of team members, and they thought that it would just be appropriate to take someone from the SST and slap them on our team. And that's not a jab at the SST. There's plenty of go-getters on the SST that are fully capable, but the thing is, they don't know our SOPs, and they've not spent the time training to do that. Yeah, the jobs are just totally different. It's not something you jump right into, dude. Especially not in an integrated training, like an integrated, because that was a big training exercise. You were integrating with other elements and stuff like that. That's not, just like you said, that's it. The teams and their responsibilities are not modular. You can't just take somebody from. You couldn't have taken me out of, the LAV team and transferred me to, the RRT, because I didn't know how to, do a hide. I didn't know how to set up a hide, or I didn't, it's just the jobs are different. Through a RIP. You've not been through SEER school. You've not been through the whole pipeline and like learn how to do what we're like our specific job. It's right. And it is extremely specific. Yeah. So. And it is pretty physically intensive. Like you have to carry, our rucks were like 80 pounds, and you had to hike over mountainous terrain in the fucking desert, dude. So anyway, I'm going to fast forward because I'm kind of going into a lot of detail and it might be unnecessary, but the short of the long of it is that, like, no matter how much I tried to convey that what we were about to do was a mistake
and dangerous to boot.
Yeah, they insisted we go. So we stepped off with an inappropriate amount of people, the inappropriate amount of communication. So we were about to get dropped off in the middle of Yuma, Arizona. And we did. And at 2 a.m., the heat index was 93 degrees Fahrenheit. So we step off. We had spread loaded all of Adam's gear and shit to kind of like compensate so that he wouldn't have to deal with that. So we were carrying more weight than we.
And for those of you listening, the guy who was transplanted is not a scrub. Like Adam,
No.
he was, he wasn't trained for, this specific job, but he was not, some soft-bodied loser.
It's supposed to be a 6-man team.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't step off with 4 dudes and then like an add-on. You can't do that. And he just hasn't. He was in Muse Platoon. Like he hadn't, or was he in the SST?
I think.
Anyway, he was not. He was not foot mobile. Like he was used to being either in a Humvee or an LAV.
Right.
Like that was his job. So he's just not conditioned to do what we were about to go.
Right.
And
so you step off.
Nobody blamed him for that. But anyway, we step off. So one of the guys on my team goes down with heat exhaustion. And we have to like set up security. Thank God one of the walkers was actually around when this happened, because originally we weren't scheduled to have a walker.
Okay.
One of the guys goes down with heat exhaustion. So he starts puking his guts up. We start doing what we're supposed to do. And he gets administratively extracted. They ended up pumping him they ended up pumping him up with IV bags and all that stuff. The other teams that are in the area, the same shit had to happen to them. One of them had to have a helicopter come in and take someone to the fucking hospital.
Yeah.
Another one, I was actually on the recovery with the whoever the walkers and the people at
the Coyotes. Yeah.
Yeah, and the dudes that are like doing the evaluation or whatever.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, but I forgot.
SOTG. We end up getting in a pickup truck and have to like go up like around these mountains to where it gets too rocky and mountainous for us to take the truck any further. So we have to jump out with like 2 gallons of water each in our hands, and we're like running up this mountain to try and find this location of the other team. And we have to get this other dude out and give them water and shit too. And all of the teams failed the mission because of how poorly it went and how dangerous the situation was. It was extremely hot. One of the teams had dipped into their saline bags because they had ran out of water like over 24 hours ago.
Holy shit.
It was a shit show, dude. So I was pissed because we weren't able to get a hold of anybody because our comms were fucked up and no one was monitoring comms. So not only did they send us out the door unprepared, they weren't watching to make sure everything went fine. They were in bed. I had to call when I finally got a hold of the skiff. I had to get somebody to go and wake them up.
Yeah.
So obviously we're pissed, right? And then when we go into the debriefing, Nick's pissed, and I just let him loose, and this got me fired because I told them this was unacceptable, and in a real world scenario, you'd probably have 6 dead Marines,
which is factually correct.
And
yeah, your team got saved because by the grace of God, there was a trainer right next to you. And then, and this is in a training scenario. You were not, you weren't taking fire. You had the mobility to go and bail out all these other teams. Like they would have had, like our detachment would have had 6 dead Marines, but the green side would have had 6 dead teams or however many people there were. Yeah.
So all of that goes down, and now everyone's really pissed at me because I called them out, and they don't like getting called out.
Yeah.
So now the whole issue with my extension comes up, and no one wants to back me up. The master sergeant doesn't want to give me any support. The lieutenant is completely separating herself from me, and I'm not getting any support from the AOIC either. So they say, if you're not going to re-enlist, then we're going to kick you off the deployment. And I said, well, what about an extension? And they said, well, that's not going to happen. I said, have you asked? And they said, there's no point. and I was like, okay, so you guys go off on another exercise and I get sent back to Radio Battalion. So I'm getting kicked off.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they're blaming it on I'm unfit to be a team leader because of the dude that got put on BCP. He got dropped from the deployment, and then they tried to blame that on me.
Even though you had all the documentation in the world that you were doing everything to try and fix it.
It is what it is, man.
Sometimes,
yeah. But anyway, so I ended up going to the company office, and the company CEO asked me what happened. I got called in there, okay? And I told him everything.
Yeah.
I told him everything about how everything was going down on the detachment. I told him everything that was like how we were just completely violating SOPs, how nobody was trying at all to see if I could get an extension, how just everything was falling apart. And his eyes were huge. He was like, why has this not been brought to my attention sooner?
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't know I could talk to you about it.
Yeah, none of us did. I remember when I was doing my exit interview with Captain Warden, who I really hope I can get on here because he's a spectacular guy and a great leader. He was like, so, what is it that made you get out? And I literally was in that, 20-minute interview for like 3.5 hours because I literally I told him everything. And it was like, just like you said, his eyes were like dinner plates. He was like, I had no idea it was like that. And I was like, no, he did. Because none of us could say anything to anybody about anything. And we were just like, all right, well, it was like being in a fucking abusive relationship or something. You're just like, no, it's okay. I have my friends.
It was a psychologically abusive relationship.
Yeah, it was absolute. Yeah. I'm glad he at least listened to you though. I mean, not that Captain Warden didn't, but I'm glad at this point in time in the mix of it, the company commander was like, yeah, like let's hear it all.
Yeah, so the company commander talked to the battalion sergeant major, and the battalion sergeant major knew the MEU sergeant major, called him, and then the MEU sergeant major said, I need to talk to you, told me to come into his office. I explained everything, and he's like, you're a good Marine, as far as I can tell. He's like, you've been meritoriously promoted twice. You seem to genuinely care about the people you work with, and I want you to go on the deployment. He's like, so I'm going to call the monitor, and I'm going to get you an extension. And It was that easy.
Yeah, crazy.
He called him up, got me the extension. It was approved in like 48 hours.
Weird.
And I was back on the deployment. So I show up for work when you guys got back from sea, and our command's pissed, dude. Our command is pissed because I went around them.
Well, you had to.
I didn't go around them. I tried to go through them, and then they wouldn't do anything, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer.
Yeah.
So I walk into the TL meeting, and the master sergeant screams at me, says, get the fuck out. He's like, I don't want to talk to you. He's like, I'll deal with you in a minute. And I said, okay. And I left. Now, I wasn't there for this, but Scott told me this is what went down. And this is one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me in my life.
Okay.
Is that all of the team leaders are in there. He just kicked me out. And Scott was like, what the hell? And he was like, what do you mean, what the hell? Or the master sergeant's like, what do you mean, what the hell? And he goes, why are you doing that to him? And he was like, well, he jumped the chain of command and blah, blah, blah. And Scott was like, no, he didn't. And then all the other TLs started chiming in.
Yeah.
From all the other teams were like, yeah, no, he has been great. We're happy to have him back. And he tried to do it the other way, and you guys wouldn't help him. I had an entire detachment of team leaders standing up to a master sergeant for me in my absence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. And like, despite all the horse shit that we had to deal with, like the friendships and like the connections and stuff that like we've made along the way, I would eat every ounce of shit again to make sure that those happen.
Yeah, agreed. Because I remember when all that was going down, and it really was like the most painful thing to watch happen from the outside. Because, you know, obviously I wasn't in that team leader meeting or anything, but like everybody knew what was going on and the fact that it was just unmitigated bullshit. You know, because we were talking to you and stuff, there was that like free communication. The team leaders were not on this pedestal, you know, removed from the rest of the members of each team.
Yeah.
There was a lot of free communication, and everybody knew that, you know, everyone had a general idea of what, I mean, I didn't know it was to that extent, and then it was remedied that quickly. But, you know, everyone was like, wow, they're really fucking him over just like that. Like, that's fucking bullshit. That's tough. And then I remember after that meeting, Shaw came to me and was like, so yeah, we just kind of read Master Sergeant the Riot Act, and I don't think they're going to be fucking with Brandon anymore. And we were like, good,
yeah,
because
I mean,
fuck that thumb-shaped asshole.
The cool thing was, dude, when I walked out of that door and I went into the hallway, I actually ran into the sergeant major, and he goes, and that's the first time I had seen him since since it got approved, since my extension got approved. And he's like, "It's all good, right?" Yeah. And I was like, "I guess for now, Sergeant Major." He's like, "What do you?" This Sergeant Major is so cool. Our new Sergeant Major was really awesome, actually.
Yeah.
He's actually, I actually really like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I said, he asked me straight up. He's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "I think my command's still going to try and kick me off the deployment." And he goes, "Oh, is that so?"
Yeah, bet. Yeah.
And then right at that moment, our Master Sergeant had come through the door behind me, and the Sergeant Major goes, "Master Sergeant, get in my office."
Hell yeah.
And I walked away.
Hell yeah.
And I went on the deployment.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did, because I'm sure that dude blew the fucking doors off that place, dude.
But I mean, there's a catch. There was a price to be had. You know, I won that battle, but I still had to suffer for it. You know, I was never a team leader again after that. They appointed a corporal over me, and that's fine because Rusty's great.
Yeah,
Rusty's a really good guy, and we worked really close together when he became the TL, and I was like, "Yo, this is what you do when you have to brief the colonel," and I helped him with all the administrative paperwork. I wasn't allowed to be in a leadership position because of our chain of command would not allow me, like, out of spite, to be in a leadership position. They would not even allow me to be the assistant team leader.
Yeah, it was really grossly petty.
Yeah, no, like, it was bad. But
it was pretty egregious.
Like, it's fine. The team devolved into a group of professional individuals that did what we needed to do in order to accomplish what task we were given. The billets mattered when they absolutely had to matter. But outside of that, like, I think everybody was pretty respectful to each other and worked really well to mitigate any bullshit. And that was a low blow for me or whatever, like, to take. And it fucked with me for a little bit. The whole deployment, I really did. I felt like a massive failure. You know, I thought, you know, maybe I did do something wrong. Maybe I could have done something different. Everything that like I had put up with up to that point in my career had culminated in the deployment that we went on, which was what I felt to be uneventful at the time.
Yeah.
But after a lot of, like, reflection and like reevaluating, like, I've been able to find the good parts in it. And I think that despite all of it, like, I'm a better man today because of it.
Absolutely.
So I try not to harbor any I don't harbor resentment to those people anymore. Like that's in the past. I can't change it.
All right, guys, thank you for listening to part 1 of my interview with Brandon. I hope you enjoyed his stories as much as I did. I did not know his career had taken the path that it had, so I really hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor. I'm trying to grow the podcast as much as possible to reach as many people as I can, so please do me a favor and subscribe. Tell your friends if you have to or if you can, and also follow the podcast's Instagram at hutb.podcast. We'll see you guys in part 2.
You know you're one thing better, clear your